I'm not going to read that. I'm Nancy Puder, and I'm the founder of Seacoast Seniors. Seacoast Seniors was designed to empower, equip, and educate older adults and their families so that as they get older, they'll make knowledge-driven versus crisis-driven decisions. So I am also, in addition to a certified senior advocate, I'm also a real estate broker with Keller Williams. So you might ask, what would a realtor want to do these free seminars for? And the reason why is because after 40 years of being in the real estate business, I continually found myself in situations where mom had taken a fall or dad had dementia, and all the kids had converged in one weekend and decided what to do with their parents' lives. And they wanted to get it done that weekend because they were going home on Monday. And so, unfortunately, as the listing agent, I was always the last one they called. So by the time I walked in the door, it was just complete chaos. They had already made a lot of not so great decisions, and then they took off to go back to their busy lives and left me there to sell the house. And usually mom was sitting in the armchair the whole time. And so I used to ask myself, where the heck are the people to help these people? And I get kind of ticked off, because by this time the kids were fighting, mediating about something Joey did when he was 9 years old to Julie, who was 6 at the time. You would not believe. And I know most of my speakers here can relate to this, right? This is what happens when you don't plan your life. This is your kids that you think are so together. Maybe not so much. So one day in 2019, the thought occurred to me again for the umpteenth time, where the heck are the people to help these people? And I decided that maybe I was somebody who should do something about it, since in 40 years of selling real estate, not one person ever stepped up. So after I got certified and looked into beginning seminars, I started to build a resource team of professionals who specialize in people who are aging. And I was delighted to find out that there are lots of amazing, wonderful people out there that want to help. The problem is nobody was talking to anybody. Nobody was bridging the gap between what they did and the people who so desperately needed their help. And that's where I came in. I thought, how perfectly positioned am I? I'm in people's homes all the time. And I would say 3/4 of my business is adults, over 60 years old. And so I've been able to build this wonderful resource team of over 80 professionals, and it's just been a wonderful journey. We've been able to help a lot of families. So that's what a realtor is doing, holding these free seminars. And I enjoy doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. All of my services are free. The only time I get paid is if you decide you want to sell your house and you call me and you say, Nancy, I think you're going to be the best one to help us out. Okay? So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, we have some wonderful panelists here today who have taken time out of their busy schedules to share with you their expertise. But before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge our education partners, Central Coast Moving Company, Team Zoe, with Cross Country Mortgage, Home Matters, and Christy is here today. Raise your hand, Christy. She does in-home care. Seniors Helping Seniors, in-home care again. Marianne, raise your hand. She's here today. Elder Placement Professionals, Nicole. And who else is here? Mary Ishikawa with Allstate. Hi, Ron. Who did I miss? Did I miss anyone? Eddie. Eddie with Envoy Mortgage. And Eddie's a specialist in reverse home mortgages. Okay, so the rest of them are up there and you can look at them at your leisure. So, do I have any veterans in the room? Okay, great. You know what, we were gonna do the Pledge of Allegiance, but I just remembered we're in the wrong room, so we're not gonna do it, so we're gonna skip it. All right, let me introduce you to our panelists. First, we have Victor Herrera. He's with Carmel and Natasha Law Firm in San Luis Obispo. Victor assists clients with conservatorship, guardianship, estate planning, trust administration, and probate. Victor's practice also includes acting as court-appointed guardian ad litem. Victor grew up in San Diego and spent time in Chicago, Washington, D.C., and the Inland Empire, and joined Carmel and Natasha in 2021. During his free time, Victor enjoys playing with his puppy. There's a story there, I'm sorry. Reading and trying to learn how to bake. And did you bring anything for us today to nibble on?
No.
Maybe next time. All right, I'm not edible yet. Okay, and then next we have Shelley O'Connell. Shelley McConnell. I'm so sorry, I wrote O'Connell in one spot and McConnell in the other. Forgive me. Shelley is a California licensed fiduciary and partner with SM2 Trust in Arroyo Grande. Shelley is a native of Reedley, California, and has lived on the Central Coast for 20 years. Working in elder care with both hands-on and management experience, she has a unique understanding of the issues confronting individuals as they age. Shelley's background includes financial advisory and investment management, working for both Kidder Peabody and Merrill Lynch before beginning her entrepreneurial career. And throughout her career, Shelley has served on many local nonprofit boards, including an assignment to the San Luis Obispo Community Foundation's Investment Advisory Board. Shelley likes to travel and spend time with her family. And that brings us to number 3, Nicole Pasden. Nicole will always be number 1 in my book. Nicole is the CEO of Elder Placement Professionals, a nationwide free referral agency for elder care. Nicole is a certified senior advisor and has a degree in business administration from Cal Poly. At age 16, Nicole became a volunteer candy striper and worked in nursing homes and obtained a CNA and EMT license. When she was 19, she went into home care and moved family to San Luis Obispo, where she quickly gained recognition as a senior expert. Nicole and her family love snowboarding, golfing, hiking, cycling, and enjoying all that San Luis Obispo County has to offer. So, thank you for being here today. We're going to go ahead, and I keep feeling like I'm missing something, so I'm just going to go back up here real quick, because I just went on and on about what I do there for a little too long. Okay, I guess we're good to go. Victor, we're going to start with you. Would you briefly tell us again what you do, and then answer what are some preventable issues that you help clients with in your law practice?
Sure. So first off, I want to thank Nancy for doing this for us. It's always nice to be able to talk to people like this as opposed to when a crisis has occurred. So for all of you that are here, I encourage you to keep attending these and learning about what's going to happen in the future. I know it makes our lives significantly easier if there's a plan in place as opposed to running to court or panic. I heard panic. That's an often event as we get that phone call either from the client or from family members freaking out because something's going to happen on Tuesday and it's Friday at 5 o'clock on, what are you going to do over the weekend? So that being said, my name is Victor Herrera. I'm an attorney at Carmel and Natasha. And for the last 15 years, I've been doing estate planning, trust administration, trust litigation, and conservatorships In essence, what I do is making sure that you keep your agency for as long as possible. In fact, that's what all of us do, is we try to keep your wishes in the front of our minds and make sure that either your kids, your family, your friends, your neighbors, do what you want. Not what I want, not what she wants, not what Nancy wants, what you want. And so that puts us in a unique position where we get to help you now versus where you might be 5, 10, 15 years down the road where you're not sure what's going on. So with that being said, the question was, what are some of the things that I help people with that I can help people avoid?
Avoid problems down the road.
So one of the easiest ones is avoiding a conservatorship. Some of you might have heard what happened with Britney Spears, or I'm just hearing up from Nicole what's going on with the blindside gentleman in Texas. A conservatorship is a court process that strips you of your rights and gives them to someone else, and that person gets to make decisions for you. In essence, it's like it reverses the parent-child position. So the conservator becomes the parent and gets to make a lot of decisions for you, and they take them away from you. Proper estate planning can avoid that. And it lets you keep making decisions for you. So that's one big one. 2 is we can avoid and reduce the time, cost, and expense of transferring your assets to family or friends when you pass away. Okay, so you don't have to go through the court process. Again, much of what I do is to try to avoid going to court. I like going to court. I enjoy it. I have yet to meet that many people that enjoy it when they don't do it for a living. And then the last one that I would say is it helps protect you. That's what I do. I can help prevent people from taking advantage of you. Whether it's family, which is always heartbreaking, neighbors, which is surprisingly common, or people that say they're there to help you, and they kind of worm their way into your life, and then they slowly gain your trust, and because of maybe isolation or the inability for your family to get here because they might be on the East Coast or something like that, they start taking things from you. And it's usually subtle, and you probably like the person, they're probably a nice person, and you're like, oh, I'll just worry about later. And that ends up down the road that you no longer have control over your own life. And so that's where we try to get ahead of the ball here as an attorney, is we try to get those tools in place and those resources in place to reduce or get rid of that opportunity for someone to take advantage of.
Wow, that's really good. I thought you were going to talk about probate, but that was really interesting. What about probate? Why would someone want to avoid a probate?
Sure, that's also quite easy. So, first off, probate is a public process. So by filing probate, everyone gets to find out about you. Now, you're dead, so you may not care, but your assets, your liabilities, everything's just out. So any kind of skeletons in the closet you might have are potentially open to the public. So that's one thing why you want to avoid probate. 2, it tends to be more expensive than a trust administration. So I'll get into a little bit of the weeds, so if I go too far, cut me off.
You've got plenty of time.
Attorney's fees in a probate are statutory in California. So it's 4% of the first 100,000, 3% of the next 100,000, 2% of the next 800,000, 1% of the next 9 million, 0.5% of the next 15 million, and then after that it's by the judge. What does that actually mean? So if your estate is worth $1 million before liabilities, that's the key part, before liabilities, the attorney's fees are $23,000. That also, the executor, so someone such as Lisa McConnell next to me, also gets the same fees. Okay, so that's $46,000 that just comes off the top. Okay? That doesn't include any what we call extraordinary fees, which would be any actual additional litigation, possibly helping sell a house. Those, the attorneys and the executor get a bill on an hourly basis, subject to the judge's discretion. So a lot of those fees can get eaten up in attorney's fees. I have a case right now where the attorney's fees, just statutory, not litigation, which there's a lot, is in excess of $175,000. So that's just, I mean, I love probates. Oh, those are great money for me. They're just not good for you. So that's 1. 2, most of us, our major assets are our homes. And in 2017, there was a change in the law here in California that says if your home is in a trust and you happen to use like Medi-Cal or Medicaid, the state of California can't go after the home in the trust to reimburse the state. But if they do a probate, they can, for example, force the sale of your home to pay back what is owed to the state of California. Right? So those are some of the big reasons that you want to avoid a probate. And for those that might ask, a will requires a probate. You can't probate a will without going to court. So a will is part of the estate plan, but it is not the only piece that you're going to use. And also, just as a side note, a living will is not a will. It is generally speaking, it's a do not resuscitate order. So if you're looking online and you see something that says, oh, I have a living will, or get a living will, that is not a will in the context that I'm speaking, which is what happens with your assets when you pass away. So again, a probate is a formal process to transfer your wealth from you to someone else. There are other vehicles that you can use that avoid the court, are faster, cheaper, and keep it private.
That's good, and I understand a probate can take up to 2 years.
Well, that or significantly more, depending on if there's litigation, the complexity. We were joking before we started, but like Michael Jackson's probate, I think, took 11 years.
Wow.
Because of litigation regarding all of his assets. He had a lot of IP, so there was fights over that, and then dealing with like record industries, I think everything with his royalties, like it can get really complicated. But here in San Luis Obispo, the delay, just the court's so backlogged right now that if say your son is in charge of the probate, he's done, he files a petition so he can finally distribute everything. The next hearings right now are being set for March of next year. And so that's just, and then if something gets, messed up or someone objects at that hearing in March, the court's kicking it out 6 more months. So it's incredibly long. Other counties aren't as bad, but they're all, it used to be before the pandemic, about a year on average to 14 months to do a probate. Right now, yeah, generally over 2 years, which just means your family doesn't get anything for those 2 years, and it's just kind of sitting there.
Wow. So one takeaway I got here is that, yes, the trust might cost you $4,000 or $5,000 up front, and a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to bother with it because I'll just, let it go to probate. But that's $5,000 versus a minimum of $43,000. So in the long run, it's either you pay it up front or it comes out of what you leave the kids for later. So it's just something to think about. Thank you, Victor.
Sure, and if right now, I can tell you what a trust does and how that's significantly faster.
Sure.
Okay, so a trust is an informal process of transferring your assets from your generation to the next generation. And because it's informal, you don't have to go to court. So let's assume I nominate my son as my trustee when I become incapacitated or when I die. So I die, he has a couple of procedural steps that he has to take, but then he has to give notice for 120 days for creditors to show up and then anyone that wants to fight the trust. But after that 120 days, if he's paid all the bills and he has all of my assets and no one's fighting him, he can distribute like on day 121. And usually it's significantly cheaper because they might come to me as the attorney. It might be $2,000 or $3,000 to do the administrative side of it, and then he's done. And you want to talk about a life difference. I mean, it's 6 to 10 months is generally what a trust takes to administer versus 2 years, and $3,000 to $5,000 with all costs and associated expenses versus $46,000. That's a big difference.
Thank you, Victor. Okay, Shelley. Shelley is a fiduciary. How many in the room know what an independent fiduciary does? Okay, not too many people. And so that's why we invited Shelley here today. Shelley is a fiduciary on my trust. and obviously I trust her. So Shelley, tell us a little bit more about what you do